we're going to learn Nadine's journey, but this is what she does. She helps people understand. She teaches basically, what you need to know about trademarking. And so we're going to get a lot more than just a couple of tips and tricks. Like, I've seen the presentation. This is really, really educational and helpful. So I'm super excited to introduce this month's guest speaker, Nadine Bedwan of Citrine Trademark Services. And basically, she's going to take over from here. I'm just going to be clicking, but I'm going to let her tell her entire story to you. And then we're going to get to what you're come here for, like all the juicy stuff that you want to know about trademarking and protecting your designs. Okay, enough of me. I'm going to hand this over now. Nadine, thank you so much for joining us and for doing this, by the way. Oh, you're on mute. There you go.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Yeah, that was a great intro. And you guys, check out Fabric. It sounds amazing. Okay, so
I always just want people, she didn't just put this here because she wanted to put these here.
Oh, yeah.
I forced everybody to put pictures of themselves as kids. So I would say, tell us, start from the beginning. Like, what were you like as a kid?
Yeah, so as you can see, I was a little bratty. You can tell from the pictures. That is my cousin being used as a human footstool. But I was just a really creative kid. I didn't come from a creative family, but I came from a very fashion forward family. So for me, that was my biggest creative outlet. You can see in the picture with me and my sisters, my mom liked to dress us up in these matching outfits. I hated to match anyone. I always wanted my outfit to be different. I really saw it as a way to communicate not just who I am, but how I was feeling that day. I went through so many experimental phases, which are not pictured. But in high school, one day I would dress super hippie. The next day I would be super grungy. So I really just like to experiment a lot and feel every day you can put on a new costume and be who you want. So yeah, I've always been really drawn to clothes and cultivating a sense of my own style.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So it's in you. All right. And then the next challenge is, well, after you started to grow up, did you know that you wanted to do this, and did it lead directly to your going to school, or did you just stumble upon it? So tell us about your education.
Yeah, so I definitely didn't know I wanted to be a trademark attorney. I didn't even know what that was. Looking back, there's always breadcrumbs. So someone mentioned you just graduated for marketing and you don't know what you want to do. I feel A, you'll figure it out, and B, once you do, you'll see how you were kind of on that path all along. But I went to UC Santa Barbara, not pictured, not important, for communication. I kind of just knew I was always a humanities type of girl. I thought maybe I wanted to do journalism or marketing, but more than anything, I just wanted to do something that I felt was expansive and wasn't going to cage me in say pre-med or something like that. So I just wanted to open doors and do something that had to do with reading, writing, sociology, stuff like that. I did study abroad in France for 1 year, and later I did a year in Spain where I was teaching English. So those two consecutive years of travel and being abroad really taught me that no matter what I wanted, no matter what I ended up doing with my career, I really didn't want to be chained to a career where someone else, a boss, could tell me you have to be here at a certain time and you can't take XYZ days off. I always knew that freedom was a huge value for me, following those experiences and just following where my inspiration can lead me, and having a career that I can literally do from anywhere in the world, which I now can.
Well, okay, so when you were in France, did you get a lot of fashion inspiration from being there? Is that
Yeah, I mean, the French are super well dressed. Everyone looks good all the time. You can't really they don't really put on sweats and look slouchy and go to the store or anything. So it definitely put me in that mindset of it can be really easy to look put together. And yeah, I mean, the thrifting was insane. It was so good. I to this day wear things that I got when I was thrifting there, and it was 10 years ago.
Oh, I love that. That's incredible. I majored in communications too, so that's really funny.
So
yeah, in the beginning, and then I figured it out and went to fashion.
Right, and look how vastly different our careers are, but we're both doing something that we love. So I think, choosing a broad major is a really good move for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree, especially something like this, because obviously we're using our skills in communication right now. You can use that for a lot of things. Okay, so tell us about like how that led into your first job.
Yeah, so I was kind of going through an identity crisis, and I made a list of like what I want in a career and what could offer me that. I felt like I started to feel like in the same vein like of communication, just being something that can open doors, being based in humanities, catering to like reading and writing, which are always my strengths. I started to see law as the same way. Like there's so many different types of lawyers. You can meet like 10 different lawyers and they can all do something completely different, all have a very different like lifestyle. And so that really drew me to it. It felt like that same idea of just like opening doors and still having a sense of freedom. And I weirdly started to feel really like envious of people who were lawyers and becoming lawyers. And again, I think if you don't know what you want to do, like paying attention to who kind of sparks a feeling of envy can be a really good clue as to like where you're meant to go. It sounds toxic, but it's really not.
Oh, it makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have these like Sweet James billboards all over the place in Arizona.
Yes.
So that was my first law-based job with Sweet James himself. It was in Newport Beach. I was a case assistant, and there were a lot of pros and cons at that job. One of the big pros being A, getting to experience the work, and B, being in an office where there were surprisingly a lot of really like strong female role models who I still keep in touch with. Pros and cons aside, it ultimately led me to applying for law school. So over that like year that I worked there, I decided this is something that I want to pursue. And I got to talk to a lot of lawyers, and they all told me not to do it, probably because, you know, they worked in a very different field, but I decided I wanted to anyway.
That always happens. I try to talk people out of fashion sometimes too. But
I never talk people out of law because I just feel like you can do whatever you want with it. And that's so beautiful.
yeah, that makes so much sense. I'm so curious about the Sweet James thing. Like I've seen them everywhere. What can you just like, I don't know how much you're allowed to say, but like, why is it Sweet James? I've always been curious.
It's just a marketing shtick. I mean, he has a good personality. I feel like you have to be as like big as he is. He was sweet. He had a partner at the time, and they were, I mean, I don't want to say too much. I didn't sign an NDA or anything, but they were like, had a lot of conflict. So there was a lot of drama. He didn't really come in that often, but yeah.
I've always been so curious. So maybe I'll ask you more questions later. Okay.
He's a nice person.
Okay. Well, he better be if his name is Sweet. I mean,
yeah. So I eventually went to law school in LA at Loyola Law School. From the start, I knew I wanted to do intellectual property, which from here on out, I'll probably refer to just as IP. That covers copyright, trademarks, and patents. Obviously, I'm most interested in trademarks, secondarily in copyright. And I was just always really drawn to the idea that you could own and legally like have ownership over your ideas, your creative ideas, your artistic expressions, and having like the legal backing of that gives you certain rights and gives you the ability to like monetize your creativity and to make a living off of it. And I knew like I wanted to help people do that because I wanted to work with the type of person who would do that. Like I wanted to represent designers, artists, creatives, and work with people who are like kind of carving their own path, which is what I felt like I really wanted to do for myself. And I wanted to work with like-minded people.
Wow, that's really nice. Okay, so while you were there, did you get your first job? Like, I don't know how it works. Like when you're in school, can you kind of, it's like a doctor, you get to work in the hospital? Okay.
So I did summer internships and stuff. One of them was for the Fashion Law, which is that like online publication that is really cool. It like talks a lot about like lawsuits that are going on in the fashion world. It's super interesting. And then I also just worked in like at a random civil defense firm office as well. But that I wasn't working as an attorney. I was just doing like research, and then the attorney would look at it and like look at my brief and then decide like help them strategize. So I was just, it wasn't very interesting. Didn't make the cut. But this is my first job as an attorney after I graduated. It was in civil litigation. So we would represent people who had been wronged by car companies specifically. It was a lot of going to court, a lot of deadlines. It taught me what I don't want, in short. As you can see, my only pictures there are when I was in the streets getting coffee. But it also taught me a lot about work ethic. It taught me about like the standard of work and professionalism and attention to detail that's expected when you work in the legal profession and you're like submitting papers to either the court or the USPTO, which is what I do now. United States Patent and Trademark Office, like double checking, triple checking everything, how to talk to clients who are, not in the best headspace, not getting the news they want to hear, and also how to negotiate in a business sense. So I am very grateful for that bit of experience.
So the job or the entry into this, that's not the same thing as a paralegal, right? Like you'd have to get a degree in paralegal.
Yeah.
Okay.
A paralegal is a very, very serious job. They have to like do their own program. But also, an aside, I use this photo of downtown LA, and while I was there, I would always see like brands doing photo shoots in the streets, like photographing models, because it's just like a downtown center. I mean, yeah. So it was really cool, and I always like, as I was seeing that, would be like, I wish I was like on that side or like doing something more related to that, So yeah, just a fun aside.
Oh, that's cool. All right. Oh, okay.
Okay, so my first year solo at Citrine Trademark Services, I got to do a lot of really cool things. I got to speak at Pepperdine Law School to the students about fashion and IP in the fashion industry and the implications that it has for fashion brands. I've done a lot of talks like these for Beverly Hills Bar Association, California Lawyers for the Arts. I've been able to do some podcasts, and it's always fun. I'm a yapper. I love to talk. So it's always really cool. The biggest lesson I've learned about entrepreneurship is definitely, the importance of marketing. I have to do that all myself currently. So it's like a new skill that you kind of have to build in and of itself and get comfortable with. And also I now get to work with creatives and help people realize their dreams, and people who are more forward facing than who are trying to get like compensation for something that happened with them. And I've had really positive client experiences. So I'm really grateful for that.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about how you made the leap from working for somebody else into suddenly just being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So while I was in law school, so another point, like while I was in law school, COVID hit during the first year. So we didn't get a lot of the opportunities that we would normally have. Like there was a trademark clinic that I really wanted to do that kind of informed my decision to go to Loyola, and it wasn't active. So I really felt like I want to get my own experience. I was working at the fashion law or interning there. So at that point I knew like, okay, trademarks is what I want to do. Just like by seeing the types of cases that would happen and stuff in fashion. And so I just like would join groups with entrepreneurs or groups of like, I don't know, people who were like building things, and I would help them with trademarks. Like I would get on a Zoom call with them, and because I wasn't an attorney at the time, I couldn't do it myself. So I would get on a Zoom call and tell them like, okay, now click on this and click on this and click on this, and like basically walk them through it. And I would have done like extensive research on everything. So I kind of like knew the ropes at this point. And then after I became an attorney, I kind of would take clients somewhat through like referrals or whatever to help them with trademarks. And then I decided to get really serious about it and took a course, like a pre or a post law school course that was completely dedicated to trademarks and the practice of it. And it also talked about kind of like what you do. It talked about like how to build your own business through this medium, and how to like set yourself up through that. And so, yeah, I felt like I had enough experience and I knew enough to be able to take clients. And so I just launched my own business. Looking back, it was kind of a leap, but I'm really happy that I did. And yeah.
That's probably everybody's thinking that right now on the call, because it's so hard to go from your day job to doing what you love and being an entrepreneur in any industry. And so that's always my biggest question for other people, because I've done the same thing, and it looks different for every person. Yeah. And the financial part is the scariest part. You're like, am I going to be able to survive doing this? And trying to find that balance where you're like, okay, now it's time, now I can do it. And a lot of us have to do both at the same time. I had the day job and the entrepreneurism for so many years until finally was able to tip over and just do my own thing. But it took a very long time. So it's interesting to kind of hear, what that.
I did like freelance work for a firm and entrepreneur at the same time for a while. So I was, definitely like, that's very real. You can't, I mean, maybe you can, I don't know, but it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself to go from having a stable paycheck to then not, and totally relying on yourself. And it can lead to a lot of like beating yourself up and stuff. So whatever you can't, you know, like if you can maybe live with family and not have to pay rent and reduce your like living costs, or if you can freelance and have the freedom to do both things at the same time without like a 9 to 5, it looks different for everyone. But yeah, I would say it's kind of self-harm to go into it and try and put all of that on your shoulders all at once.
Yeah, I mean, that it just depends on how much sleep you actually need, because having the full-time job and then doing that on the nights and weekends is really like what it sometimes takes, and what I actually went through. So I know that. All right. So tell us a little bit about what we're looking at here.
So this is the last slide about me, I promise. But I also just wanted to talk about like my creative practice and how I feel like that has helped me in the work that I do with other creatives. So I crochet and knit, and I feel like having like that creative process in and of itself really is grounding for me, and being able to take an idea from like conception to a physical product that I can either wear or give to my friends to wear is very rewarding for me. And it also, I think, puts me in the shoes of my clients. So yeah, it kind of like teaches me, puts me in their shoes and shows me like, you know, what they're trying to do in a sense, of course, on a much larger scale than what I'm doing. But it helps me realize like, you know, how emotionally invested they are in their ideas, in their designs, in XYZ. And I can really relate to that. And I really value that. And I hope that I can just continue to like relate to them on a deeper and deeper level as time goes by, because it's kind of like my meditation. Yeah. And if you want to follow my crochet,
I'm looking it up right now. Actually, I'm so curious. Nana's Little Lamb, huh? That's cute.
Yeah, it's very new, but we'll see. Yeah, and I gave a piece to a friend who's a stylist, and he ended up styling it for an art show, which is really fun. But yeah.
Okay, I'm following you right now. You guys,
okay, cool.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's awesome. I don't know how you, okay, so I've been in fashion for 30 something years at this point, and I cannot knit or crochet. Like, I'm just gonna say it. I can't do it. It doesn't work with my brain. That is like a definite crazy skill that it takes a left brainer.
Yeah, I feel like it's so repetitive that it is like a meditation, honestly, and that's kind of why I like it. But yeah, I don't know. It comes natural. Just kidding.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Okay, now let's talk about trademarks.
That was amazing. I love hearing people's stories. So congratulations, you know, on getting to do what you love to do. That's like the most important thing. And to be your own boss. You know, I think everybody on this call probably appreciates that. So thank you for sharing the details. And I love that, like, we're going to get a whole bunch of information here. I mean, I've seen these slides and this is so educational. So I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Yeah. So just a note, like I said before, if you have a question at any point, please just like unmute yourself or put it in the chat. I see the chat as it pops up. Don't wait till the end. I like people to ask like as I'm talking about it, or just finish talking about it, so it's kind of fresh in all of our minds. But also I really wanted to try and meet everyone like where they're at, in terms of like not giving you information that's so elementary that you already know it, or not speaking so conceptually that like you get lost. Obviously, I don't know how much you guys know, so I'm sorry if any of this is like repetitive or whatever, but yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. And do you want me to read the questions to you when they come in, or can you see them?
I can see them, but if you see it and I don't address it, then you can go ahead as well.
Okay.
Okay, so first let's start off with, what do trademarks even protect? So they protect any consumer-facing brand element. So when somebody's out in the world and they encounter your brand, likely they're seeing your brand name. That's the most important thing, and that could even include your name if you are naming your brand your own name, which a lot of people in fashion do. And then secondarily is often going to be the logo. So those are the two main elements that people often see, and those are the two main things that trademarks protect. However, it can also protect the name of a collection, a specific product, colors, prints. We'll talk about trade dress, or any identifiable design element. So I used Vans here as an example. skatewear line. And these are just a few of the trademarks that they have, but you can see how many logos they have, as well as there's a word mark at the bottom, Ultra Cush. They have that word mark for Vans as well. I think that's the name of like a product. They have the print of the shoes, the checkerboard that they do on a lot of products. They have the design of the shoe itself. They have that little red sticker that goes in the back of the shoe. These are all examples of trade dress. And so what having a trademark for these elements gives them is the exclusive right to use that branding element in the market. And if somebody else wants to put, create like that slip-on that has a checkerboard print, they can go after them. And they have, in the case of Walmart, for example. And if any other clothing brand wants to use like that square root symbol, they can go over them as well. Can I trademark a signature design that I drew up? So that depends. If you're using it as a logo, then yes. If you are using it as a one-off illustration or piece of work, then no, that would be copyright protection.
This is an interesting story. So when I worked in LA, I was a production manager for another brand, and we were making jeans, and we would put a little red tab or flag in the seam of the pocket in the back, but the brand name was there. And Levi's came after us and said, "You can't do that. We own the ability to put a little red flag in the seam of something." So
yeah, Levi's does own that. And yeah, it can be something so small, but if you do it consistently and no one else is doing it, that's a really good opportunity for you to create an environment where no one else can. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But jeans, denim companies do that all the time, like True Religion, 7 Jeans. If you were around in the 2000s, it was a frenzy back then with the pockets.
Yeah. And then we mentioned prints and colors. Is that like Schiaparelli pink, for example? Like she owned that color pink, so you can name it a certain thing and own that color?
It could be. I don't know about Schiaparelli pink. I feel like embarrassed, like maybe I should, but Tiffany blue, the Louis Vuitton red that's on the bottom of the soles, those are all examples. So yeah, I mean, the Hermes orange, those are all examples of brands owning colors. So it's totally possible and very common.
Got it. Cool. Wow. Can you imagine? I mean, like, how would you even, you'll have to tell us that. Like, how do you even say this is my color? Like, do you have to mix it to own it? Like, come up with it? Or
I think they use like the Pantone color scale. So you would find, or like some other identifiable or like recognized color scale. So you would find the specific shade, and then you have to use it consistently in a way that's like protectable, which we'll talk about. Okay. But yeah, so I want you guys to start thinking about trademarks as the legal backbone of your brand, because it's kind of twofold, right? It lets you go after brands that are copying you, and it also protects you from other brands copying you. So why don't you want brands copying you? Obviously, so many reasons, but first, it can confuse your consumers. You don't want people out in the marketplace seeing a brand and wondering, oh, is that affiliated with this other brand that I know? Is it not? If I buy this, am I supporting them? Or like what's going on? And it also waters down the strength of your brand image if anyone can just go anywhere and kind of see your like marketing being on your branding on different products that are not affiliated with you. It gives your brand less of a strong commercial impression, and a strong commercial impression leads to more trust, more familiarity, and ultimately more sales. Also, make sure nobody can come after you. So we'll talk about cease and desists on the next slide. But basically, it's a letter that someone can send you that will make you stop using your brand name or logo or whatever. And you want to be in the position of somebody who is sending these, not somebody who is receiving them. And trademarks are the distinguishing factor of that. So I use this image of like a billboard in a downtown area. Which I don't know, I'm using that as like the biggest visibility a brand can have, same with like a commercial or whatever. And visibility can be a great thing. Again, it can lead to sales, more people know about you. But when you don't own the name that you're building, it's actually a huge liability, because it puts you on notice of people who might want to copy you. And visibility is not great when you don't actually own what you're creating, because it can be just like a bigger target as opposed to being a power move. So in short, trademarks help build client trust and brand value through consistency. A trademark allows you to consistently use the same brand name, same brand elements, same logo without being worried about someone coming after you and making you change it. And over time, that consistency builds trust among consumers in the marketplace, familiarity, and ultimately makes you an established brand that people will gravitate towards purchasing from.
So Estella has a follow-up question. Can you go into more detail about making it a logo? The original question was, can I trademark a signature design that I drew up? And I'm wondering, Estella, did you originally mean a clothing design, like you drew like a dress, for example? Maybe that was original.
I made it into a pattern, and I made the design, and I drew it one day and just made it, and I have a couple people kind of making something similar, so I was trying to protect it.
Okay, so I think this is on a future slide, but when it comes to clothing designs, that's not something that you can protect with trademark or even really with copyright in most cases, unless it's like a very fringe case. What I meant by making it a logo is like if you put that sketch like on your tags or next to your brand name, or in a way that it's always there being identified with your brand, like on your website, you like using it as a logo, like the Nike swoosh. So it's like constantly when you bring up your brand. But if it's an actual sketch that will be translated into a clothing design, that's going to be much more difficult to protect.
Okay. Because I think like the way I'm looking at it is like it's a signature design, you know what I mean? For like, and the signature design is my brand. You know what I mean? That design is the brand, you know? It is in all the logos. It is the same design in different colors, you know?
Yeah, I guess I would have to see it. There are cases of like a handbag or something that has a unique shape being trademarked. So maybe if you show it to me, then I can give a better answer. But in the future, it's always a bit more difficult with like clothes that you wear.
Yeah, somebody once told me, some attorney once told me, like, it's because, think about it, you can't own the mini skirt. You know what I mean? Everybody should be able to make a mini skirt, you know? So is it really just coming down to like what you're saying is if there's a function and it's a unique thing that like isn't just a dress or something like that, then maybe that's something you could actually own.
Yeah, and I mean, think of like Steve Madden, you know, or any brand that became famous off of creating like more budget-friendly versions of a designer or a high-end item. It's better for the economy for similar items to exist at different price points, because that just means more people are spending money for something that's desirable. So that is the rationale behind it. It's functional, and we want as many people as possible to buy into trends. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So getting into a cease and desist, it's basically a legal demand that you might receive in the mail to stop using either your brand name, your logo, or XYZ branding element. It's usually sent by another company or their attorney who have the superior rights to whatever this branding element is. And basically, we can't really read it, but in that red square, it has some language, which is pretty standard in most cease and desist, something similar that says you have X amount of time to stop using this, or we will seek legal action against you. So at that point, your options are to have to rebrand pretty quickly, which incurs many significant financial costs and also reputational costs. Imagine having to change your brand name overnight, or you end up having to pay to fight off a lawsuit where the outcome isn't going to be certain, and you might just end up losing all of that money and all of that time. And so, yeah, definitely don't want to receive one of these. They are quite common. A lot of brands are unknowingly, not even maliciously, copying another. And I've been in the position where somebody comes to me because they received one, and we either have to respond to them, or I just tell them, you know, you really don't have it out here. I've also been in a position of having to send these on behalf of clients, and it always feels better to send them, let me tell you.
Wow. Okay. There was something I was just thinking of to ask you about that. Oh man, shoot. I'm going to probably think of it in just a second. Oh, did we have a hand up? Yes, Isela?
I have a question. Could the cease and desist go for like say a company reached out to you and wanted you to come to a fashion show at their event space, and you had this idea that you started curating with the marketing team and this event place, and another person came in and did that exact place or exact idea at the exact place, and if they did something like that, could you send a cease and desist in that situation?
So it depends on, firstly, if you have reason to believe that that person was aware of what you were doing, and if you can map out like that it's plausible that they thought like that they copied you, or if they potentially came up with that idea themselves. Also, if you have any rights to that idea under the law. So if you had specific contracts that stated that you were going to execute this idea, and then there was like a breach of contract situation. So it really just depends on the specific facts.
Okay, because like I was her like old employer, and
Okay.
she was like really rude to me, and then I think she just kind of did it maliciously, So I was just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I did think of my question. So you mentioned, a lot of fashion designers have their own brand under their own name, like I do. What if somebody else, there's another Angela Johnson who is a fashion designer, like who would be the one that would win this battle?
Yeah, so having the trademark would be a huge advantage. If you have the trademark, then you have the nationwide rights. The only way that the other Angela Johnson could carve out some limited rights for herself would be if she was able to show that she was out there existing and making sales before you. And in that case, basically she wouldn't have to shutter her doors, but she would be very severely limited in how she can expand. So she might be confined to a geographic location. She might be confined to the exact items that she was selling before you came along and got the federal trademark. So yeah, getting a trademark is going to ultimately decide who has more rights, and then also who used it first will be another like variant of how that could go.
Could two people have the same name but be doing completely different type of clothing and it can exist together?
No, they can be doing two completely different kinds of like industries as a whole. So you can be doing clothing and they could be doing like food and beverage, but you can't both be doing clothing. Under the USPTO, the United States Patent and Trademark Office, they view everything within the clothing class 25, as related. So even if somebody's doing baby clothes and somebody's doing like athletic shoes, which is the case for Little Lamb because I've checked because of my thing. Yeah, they're like deemed as similar.
Wow. Okay. It's interesting.
Okay, so in addition to being the legal backbone of your brand, I also want you to look at trademarks as a business advantage, because they really are. They do not just prevent disasters, but they unlock a lot of revenue and a lot of growth. So let's talk about growth. First, if you want your brand to ever be invested in, taken on by investors, or have shareholders, they're going to want to see that you have proper trademark protection before they invest in you, because otherwise it opens up a lot of risk for them that they won't be willing to take on. Similarly, if you ever see yourself being carried by major retailers, that could be online like a Net-a-Porter or an Essence, or in person like a Nordstrom or a Bloomingdale's. A lot of these retailers are not going to want to carry a brand that doesn't have a trademark for the same reason. It can open them up to liability. And it also makes it more difficult to kind of see you as a serious player in the business world. Next, collaborations. Collaborations unlock huge growth for brands, specific, especially clothing brands, but any like kind of trendy brands, etc. So in these deals, let's use like Nike Skims as an example. You're using your trademark as a form of property. It's intellectual property. In the same way you would lease out, let's say, a spare room in your house, you are leasing out the rights in a limited capacity to use your mark. So in the case of Nike Skims, they came out with this Nike shoe design, the Nike Airift, that like split toe kind of ballerina sneaker, and it says Skims on it, and it is in a satin finish. But just having the Nike shoe with that Skims finish, that is the result of an extensive contract where they mapped out who's allowed to use what. Obviously, they're allowed to use each other's brand names on their own items, for how long, in what capacity, how that revenue is going to be split. So there's a lot that goes into it. And if you go into it not owning your IP, then you will most likely, that's like a huge risk of getting taken advantage of, especially if you're the less experienced person in the collaboration. So I've seen this happen where, a small brand collabed with Converse. After they stopped working together, Converse used their tagline on and all over their next campaign, and the guy wasn't able to do anything. So if you don't own your IP, somebody else can use your name just casually, or your tagline just as it exists in the English language, without having to give you anything, and you don't have a right to do anything or say anything. I hope that makes sense. I feel like this is very conceptual. So if anything doesn't make sense, let me know. Yeah.
No,
And
that makes sense.
okay. In the same vein as like leasing a room in your house, IP, when you own it, is a transferable asset. So again, you can lease it by like doing a collab or letting someone use it in a limited capacity. You can sell it if you've built the brand up to be something big. I see this in food and bev a lot, where they've like built it up to a certain point and now they want to sell it to PepsiCo for $1 billion. And you can also pass it down. You know, it's property that could go in your will or in trust for generations to come if that's what you want. And then lastly, there is a mental shift that happens. I see it all the time when you start to treat your brand as a business and take it seriously and invest in its growth and protection, as opposed to when you're kind of maybe seeing yourself as like a freelancer who is just like seeing how it goes. There's definitely like an identity shift that happens. And that's another advantage of investing in your brand and in your IP.
It's very true.
Okay, so 2 things that can kill your trademark application: the name that you choose, so a name that's too descriptive or generic, which we'll talk about, and a name that's too similar to an existing trademark. And we'll get more in depth on both of these in the next slides. Okay, so choosing a strong brand name, as a rule of thumb, the more creative, the easier your name is going to be to protect. So the top names are what we call fanciful names, and this just means made up. So if you think of the word Adidas, if you looked into a dictionary, Adidas isn't there because it's a made up word. All it means is that brand. And so the risk of someone copying you is very, very small because, so the risk of somebody else using that name before is very small because you made it up. So how would they have thought of it? And then if somebody does copy you, your protection of the name is going to be much broader because there's no, like, the more creative your brand name is, the broader the protection and the scope that the USPTO kind of gives it is, because it makes less sense for somebody else to be using this name and not be affiliated with you. That makes sense. As we go down, we have arbitrary names. So Coach, for example, could mean many things if you look it up in the dictionary, but to use it to sell like clothing and handbags is quite random. There isn't really like a causal connection. And so those names are arbitrary. Another really good example is Apple for computer electronics. And so somebody could use the name Apple for something completely unrelated, but it's just super random. Next, we have suggestive names. So Nike is a good example of that. Nike is a Greek god that deals with like athleticism, which obviously has a lot to do with the brand. You can also think of like Tinder as a suggestive name because it's matching people who hopefully have like a spark. So it kind of gives you like a wink and a nod, but it's not describing the name. These are probably some of the most common and the most clever, but also this is kind of where you're getting into that territory of, because it's clever and because it's witty and there is a connection, it's more likely that somebody else has thought of it because it's not just something random or made up. Like it makes sense, you know? And then the more descriptive, the harder your name is going to be to protect. So when we say descriptive, we mean describing a quality or characteristic. A good example of this is Los Angeles Apparel, formerly known as American Apparel. It's describing a characteristic of the product, which is apparel, and that it's manufactured in Los Angeles or in the US. These names can be trademarked, but they have a hurdle, which is they have to exist for 5 years or more. And you have to be able to show that it has gained enough of a presence, either through, showing press that's been written about it, showing how much you've invested in marketing, how big your sales are, how many followers you are. Like you have to have a showing that we've built this name up to something. Whereas if you went for one of the first 3 names that are more creative in nature, you don't have to do any of that. It can just be an unknown brand and you can get the trademark. And then generic names are a total bar, even if it's in another language. So when you think of generic name, think of like a lemonade stand on the street that literally says lemonade stand. Like it's literally telling you point blank what the name is. I put Vetements here. It's that Swiss clothing brand that was really big a few years ago. They were trying to get the Supreme Court recently. Their trademark application got denied so many times over the course of 5 years. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court refused to hear the case, and now they're not able to get a US trademark because Vetements in French literally means clothes, making it generic, and it's quite impossible to trademark a generic name.
Oh.
And they have all the showing in the world of like press and success and all of this stuff, and it still isn't enough. So now we're getting into the second thing, which is wanting to make sure that an existing brand doesn't exist with the name that you're trying to use. The best way to do this is going to be with a comprehensive search from an attorney, but there are some ways that you can preemptively do some research on your own just to make sure that you're not like missing some glaring red flag with the name you want to use. The first, and this does have to be said, is a Google search, because a lot of people don't think to do that. And also it will give you an idea of something that exists that also might not be in the USPTO database. So I would always suggest searching like your brand name and then whatever it is that you sell, because sometimes a name can, you know, especially if it's like suggestive or arbitrary, it could yield results and you're going to have like thousands and thousands of pages. So there's a difference between looking up like the word Coach versus Coach clothing or Coach handbags in terms of what's going to come up. Next, once you've searched Google, you can search the USPTO database with that link, or just Google USPTO search and it'll come up. That's kind of what it looks like. And I always suggest that you type in the name of the brand and then hit expert. When you hit expert, this little checklist will come up and you can see what like classes your product is in, and then check those off and it'll give you more specific results. So for example, clothing is 25, jewelry is 14, bags and wallets are 18. If you don't know, you can just ask Google and it'll come up. And yeah, just asterisk, this method is only a first step. It only pulls up identical marks and does not account for words that might be spelled the same or spelled similarly but not exactly the same, or words that are pronounced the same but spelled differently, which will also be a threat. So definitely do this, but don't think it's like it's not the end all be all.
Have you noticed that with ChatGPT that's a tool that is even more, I don't know, is better than Google or not?
Yeah, so ChatGPT is really good to ask for the classes, like this is what I'm selling, what classes would this be in? It could also be good if you get a result and you don't know, like, okay, is this borderline? Is this really threatening? Is this not an issue? It can do a pretty good like assessment at letting you know. What it cannot do is like look in the database for you. You can't say like, oh, do any other brands exist? Yada, yada. And yeah, I'm trying to think. It does mess up a lot. Somebody said it in certain things, like someone sent me that they were trying to do an entire trademark application off ChatGPT, and they sent me like the chat and they were like, tell me why I should hire you instead. And yeah, there was like a lot of just really like crazy and glaring mistakes. But if you ask it like a very specific prompt, it can do an okay job.
Estella has a question, but I just want to ask one more thing about that since we're talking about ChatGPT. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but do you feel like it's going to get even more thorough and that's going to be a threat for you? Because that's the case in so many of our industries. Like we're all dealing with that right now.
So I don't know. I mean, I feel like in terms of like doing legal research, when you get into, again, needing to like assess risk and then respond to like an action from the USPTO, I've honestly tried and had high hopes that it could make my job easier, which is probably not smart of me, but it just like failed so miserably that I'm not able to rely on it in that way. I don't know if it will get better, but in terms of like having to pull up legal research and draft an argument based off of precedent, I don't see that really happening anytime soon. And then, yeah, I don't know. And also like, it can only be as good as the prompt that someone gives it. And so that's going to put a lot of like burden on just an average user who's trying to use it for this purpose. They're going to have like a significant hurdle to have to like educate themselves enough to prompt it correctly to even get the right answer. So I don't know. I'm like naturally just not worried.
That's good. Good. I know. I feel like the same way with fashion design, you know, like I've tried to use so many different AI things and I'm like, it's just not the same.
Yeah. And I also get a decent amount of people who come to me who used chat to help them and they like did something wrong, or it didn't highlight the importance of something enough that they ended up doing wrong. So yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like I'm constantly faced with people who like messed up or who chat did wrong. So I don't know. For now, I think I'm fine.
I know a lot of people will come to us with like AI drawings that I'm like, we can't use this. This is like absolutely not a real flat. Like this isn't going to work. There's, you know, so yeah, there's still a long way to go with AI. Thanks for telling us. So Isella, do you want to ask your question? Did I catch you, or was this something from before?
Oh, oops, that was an accident. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm just pressing buttons over here. My bad.
Okay, no worries.
Okay. So just a warning. Don't try not to fall in love with a name too fast before you've at least done a valid search, because this will definitely give you blinders and can be one of the biggest pitfalls that I see with founders. It happened to me myself. I originally wanted to name my company something else. And then I realized that I didn't get too far because I quickly realized that the trademark wasn't available, but I did stupidly get like a domain name, and I was just emotionally connected to the name, and I felt like it embodied everything I wanted so perfectly. And then realizing that I couldn't use it kind of put everything on hold for like weeks, because I just felt like, well, I can't run a company or build a business without that doesn't even have a name. So I was super stalled, and then I ended up finding this name that I like 10 times better. So I always tell people, like, if the name you want isn't available, there honestly might be one that you like even better out there, but you just have to be open-minded. But yeah, falling in love with the wrong name, it will waste your time and money, because you'll try to apply for that name. It has a low chance of registration. And then not only are you spending the money on the registration or on the trademark application, the filing fees, but it takes like 9 to 14 months to hear back. And so within that span of time, you're likely investing in other things with that name, like a domain, packaging, product design, tags, etc. And so you're losing all of that. And then you're also like kind of building momentum that you're going to have to start over. And again, it puts you at risk of having to rebrand or getting sued, which we touched on before. But yeah.
So basically 14 months before you get started, you need to figure out the name, and don't do anything until you
So here's what I would say. Like, this is the realistic timeline. I would say if you find a name, the gold standard of what you can do is have an attorney do a search, and then based off of that search, they will let you know, like, there's a high risk, there's a medium risk, there's, some potential conflicts, but confident we can overcome it. And then you can file an application, and then at that point, I would say you can start reliably investing in it based off of course, if they say like it's high risk, but you want to go forward anyways, like, be very conservative. If it's low risk, you can do a little bit more, but I still wouldn't go like all out, like, filming a commercial and doing a billboard. Like, I would still, maybe get some packaging, or get packaging that doesn't say the name, and, don't etch the name into every single product, but kind of use it light, like branding light. And then once you have it, then you can really go full scale. But you can do some things while, like, even having that application in is a form of protection, because it gives you precedence in line. And especially if there's not that much competition out there, you can move forward pretty confidently.
Oh, a hand, Holly. Yes.
Hi, sorry. This is kind of like a specific question, and I kind of already asked you this, but do you think it would be like a lost cause if I applied a sleepover by Holly? Like, does that differentiate myself? Like, is it worth applying for, you think?
I think it's still going to be difficult. I think you still might get that same action that you got. And again, kind of like depending on who the examiner is and how lenient they want to be, and how much you can like differentiate yourself. I think you're still going to have to argue, and it could go either way, but it will be easier and give you more peace of mind if you could think of something a little more creative. Yeah, I think something like by Holly, or like by your name, or even adding like sleepover studio or sleep, like those kind of like basic words that you see at the end of a lot of brand names don't do much in terms of like pushing the needle. So if you could go more, if you could go more creative, that would be my suggestion. But if you want to do like by Holly or with Holly and take that risk, then just know what's at stake, I guess. But yeah, I think, yeah, like, the more creative you can go, especially if you're going to go through the process of like redoing an application and all of that, and having not launched yet, it would be the most prudent to choose something that is much more distinct. Yeah, that's my.
So if I change it to like sleepover house or like sleepover studios, is that just as like kind of equally bad as if I did sleepover by Holly? Or were you saying that's more like that would be better?
Studio is also like very basic. You see it at the end of a lot of brand names. Sleepover house might be a little bit stronger. I could see that working, but studio is almost like generic in that it doesn't do anything. And then by name is like barely a step up from that, because again, you see it doesn't really like stick as part of the brand name. It's kind of just like an add-on, but house could be, even though you do kind of see that sometimes, but I don't know, something like, I don't know.
Holly day and night.
I just have like a lot of people already being like commenting like, I love this name, like it's so great. And so like I want to keep the name and just like add something to it. But yeah, I guess I do want to just try by Holly, but if it gets rejected, then maybe try house. I don't know. But at this point, it's just holding up like my production because like I need to place a PO and I feel like my supplier is getting a little antsy with me. But they're doing my packaging and like my tags. So I need to like change my logo ASAP so I can just get everything settled with my supplier.
Sleepover, like again, this still isn't a slam dunk, but sleepover with Holly might be like a touch more distinct than by, because by is like pretty generic, like by the name. So yeah, if it's all the same, I would say maybe do with, but that's still not gonna like really.
What about like at Holly's?
Ooh, that's cute. Sleepover at Holly's. I think that kind of does change it a little bit. Yeah, okay. I mean, I think that could be like a decent,
better than by Holly
on the fly. So don't take anything as like official legal advice, but we're just coming back and forth. I think sleepover at Holly's, of the ones you mentioned, could be the most distinct of those.
Okay.
I like sleepover with Holly too. That's cute.
Mm-hmm. I just don't want people to be like, because I feel like I have some like younger audience too. They're like the person like, who's Holly?
Yeah. I'm Holly. Yeah, you're Holly. What do you
But if at Holly is more distinctive, like better chances of getting it accepted than with and by, then I might apply for that and just hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of changes the meaning too. Like it, like by certain person, like we see that with brands all the time, and then with is kind of just like a play on that. But at Holly's, I think gives it like a little bit more of a different meaning, and also like I don't know, I feel like because I follow you obviously, and I think like you have such a good presence. On sorry to everyone else, but I feel like you have such a good presence, and if you like maybe like told people what you're going through, maybe like you could get input from your followers.
I thought about doing that too. I feel like someone would come up with something good, but yeah, I wasn't sure if I should just like tell everyone, oh, by the way, my name's changing.
Or just be like, look, this is the position I'm in, and like just I mean, it's real. It happens all the time.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think I'll probably put a video out there. I'm sure you'll see it soon.
Okay. Now I'm curious, what's your handle?
It's at Sleepover Sheets. I mainly post on TikTok right now, but once I have like product, I'll be more on Instagram too.
Okay, cool. I want to make sure I'm following everybody.
We've been like, let's have a sleepover. I feel like even though that's a little bit more of a mouthful, like it has the element that you like, and it's like kind of that's like really, I would say, makes it different.
Or like I could do like want to have a sleepover or something like that. It could be that long.
It's long, but a lot of brand names are long. Okay.
Thank you.
We have another question, Leslie.
Hi. So my name is Leslie Deer, and my business is named LA Deer, which is just my first and middle initial, Deer. And then deer being a common word, when you search for deer, you get a lot of hunting stuff. So my business is LA Deer Apparel. And I'm just wondering if that is just like too plain or too simple, and it's going to be problematic to trademark.
I don't think it's too, I mean, when you say plain or simple, do you mean like descriptive or generic?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it is, because if you see like LA Deer, I mean, apparel doesn't, like words like apparel, or like she mentioned sheets, like a descriptor word of what you offer doesn't move the needle any which way. You have to disclaim it from the application. So like LA Deer is going to be the principal part of the mark. And the test is, if somebody were to hear LA Deer, would they be able to like immediately know what you do? No, you know, so it's not too descriptive or too generic.
Good.
Okay, so it's safe to use then.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, great.
Okay, we have another question, Anna.
Okay, I think you can probably hear me.
Yes.
So I've actually been trying, I'm probably like 5 steps behind where everyone else is in their business and who are trying to name their business. I've had a name. Well, I had a name that I wanted to use for a long time, but I didn't, like, I hadn't done anything with it yet because I hadn't started anything yet. And and then later on, I'd found somebody with a very similar name to mine, because my name the name I wanted to use was Anna Grace Designer. And I found somebody who's got Anna Grace Design, and I think they do website design. I've heard that, like, I've heard a lot of people, like, you know, how saying, like, I heard, like, I met a designer named Tracy Johnson, and her business name was Tracy Johnson Clothing or Apparel, something like that, fashion. And she told a whole class, but she told me about how she was in a legal battle right now over her, or back then, that was a long time ago, over her name, because there was a makeup company that wanted her name because they had the same name, but it was just makeup.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, so when I found out there was somebody already using something very similar to mine, although it doesn't have the word, although the word is like a different word, like they have design and I wanted to use designer, I was like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't go with that. So I've been working on like a bunch of names.
Okay, well, let me ask, what does the other Anne Grace Design do again?
I think she does web design or like branding, like marketing sort of stuff.
So you still might be okay to use Anna Grace Designer, because when it comes to like clothing and makeup, those are viewed as similar, because think of how many clothing brands have a makeup segment or makeup branch or sell makeup and vice versa. So as a consumer, if you were to see both of those, it would be very plausible that it's the same company. When it comes to a clothing brand and someone who does like website design services or marketing services, you don't see it too often, if ever, that it's the same company that does both. So because what you do is much more different, I wouldn't necessarily X out using the name Anna Grace Designer just based off of that. But anyway, you were saying.
Yeah. Well, I've just been like wrestling with, is it too similar? Do I need to pick a whole new name? I'm really haven't started very much, just sort of dealing with the fact I don't have a name.
Yeah. So if you want to, you know, be like as sure as you can be that you're not going to have I mean, you can go with a different name, but I think when it comes to like clothing versus website design or like marketing services, I would want to, I guess, see like exactly what that other brand is doing and like everything, like, yeah, kind of, I would want to see them and get a better sense of like what they do. But off the top of my head, I would say that having a clothing brand, even if it has a very similar name to something in a completely different sector, they can coexist. I mean, think of like Dove soap and Dove chocolate, same name, but very different industries. So it's not a conflict. Just like, yeah, for everyone, a good thing to ask yourself if you do have like a competing brand with the same name is, would a typical consumer assume that the same company is selling both these things?
Yeah. Okay. And then kind of a second part to my question, Does Anna Grace Designer sound like too much like it wouldn't work as a name?
Well, I think like using the noun designer as opposed to like design or designs is more, it's rare, if not, it's like very unique. I've not really seen that, but I don't see why it wouldn't work if that's what you want to do.
Okay, thank
I
you.
mean, Cynthia would probably have better input on this than me. From a trademark perspective, that's not a problem, but like from a branding or like fashion apparel perspective.
It is unique. You don't really hear it done that way. You know, it's usually design. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. Yeah.
Thanks. I figured out the name after I named my laptop that.
That's funny. All right, we have another question. Nalasia.
Oh, hello. So I do intimate apparel, undergarments, lingerie and bra sets, but the company of my name is Build a Bra, and I want to know if it clashes with Build a Bear. But I didn't think it did since we're in different industries, but I don't know if that'd be okay or not.
So that's a really interesting question. Sorry, did you have more?
Oh, no, that's all.
So that is really interesting. You're right. You are in very different industries. The only potential conflict I could think of is because Build-A-Bear is so iconic that it's like a famous mark. It could argue like that it's famous, and I say famous in like a legal sense. They could argue that having Build a Bra, if they want to be like aggressive with their IP strategy or their litigation strategy, they could say that your brand name is like diluting or weakening the strength of their brand name. So would the USPTO have a problem with it? I don't think so. Would Build-A-Bear have a problem with it? I think it's possible because they are like iconic, quote unquote.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You might get the trademark, but you still might be like, they still might want to take action against you or make you stop.
Oh, okay. What about if the logo has some design in it? Because I know like the B in Build, it's like a sideways bra, and then the L is a ruler. Like, does that help me any? Or they could still take action that won't matter?
Yeah. So they would take issue with the name itself, not so much the way that you like stylized the name, but just like I mean, when you file a trademark for a brand name, they're all done in like Times New Roman font. So yeah, then the actual like bra and the ruler, that would be your logo, even if it does have the brand name. So they would still take issue with, I mean, if they're gonna have a problem with it, they would have a problem with it, even with that.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for the feedback.
Why don't you sell them the name so they can make bear bras?
I know.
I feel like such a naysayer. I'm sorry. I just have to like tell people what's at risk.
Okay, so we already did this
dress?
slide. Oh no, we didn't do this slide.
Let's get into it. Okay, so trade dress is protecting a specific design element. Two examples are the True Religion denim pocket stitching. You see this in a lot of denim, or the Louis Vuitton red soles. And basically what trade dress protects is a repeated design element that signifies the brand. So in both these examples, they use them across pretty much all of their designs. So much so to the point that when you see a red sole out in the wild, you know the brand of that shoe. You know, you don't need to see the brand name. You don't need to see the logo. That functions as the source identifier in and of itself because it's so repeated and they've been doing it for so long. And, you know, it's become famous. So, and same with like the denim pockets. So what I was talking about with the descriptive names, that 5-year plus a showing of, you know, like sales records, marketing, press, stuff like that, like showing that it has gained something, like you built it up to be something, is going to be necessary if you want to protect a design element too. You can't just on day one try and submit your stitching design or your red sole and say, I want to trademark this, I'm going to make it part of my brand. You have to first make it part of your brand, be able to show that it's something people are aware of, even if it's just your community and something that you've had some success with, and then you can do it. So there is that like same hurdle. And what you can protect with trade dress, colors and patterns are a big one. the Louis Vuitton, they own that shade specifically, and it has to contrast the rest of the shoe. So if you're doing an all red shoe with a red sole, anybody can do that. For Louis Vuitton specifically, it has to contrast. So the protection for trade dress elements are a little bit more narrow and limited. The USPTO is very hesitant to give like wide scale protection to one person or one brand over a specific design element. Yeah, so the specific shade and the placement or the positioning of the mark is going to be important. We see this a lot in packaging. So like I said, the Tiffany blue boxes, the Hermes orange bags, the Victoria's Secret pink, they have like a dark pink, light pink stripe on their bags. That's also trademarked as trade dress. So yeah, and it's always good. I think I have a guide on my website. If you go to like my website, which I'll tell you later, and go to products, there's like a guide on how to do this specifically for fashion brands that you can download. And it's always good because you have to do that like 5-year period of building it up to know from the beginning, like what you can weave into it, what makes it special to you, and like a design element that you like, that you think could be part of the brand. Just sow the seed of implementing it consistently so that when the time comes, when it reaches that like maturation period, you can have a good showing of being able to protect it and knowing from the start like what you're going to need to do so that you're not like starting from zero when it comes time that you want to do that. Yeah, and then the same hurdles we described for descriptive marks also apply for this. I talked about that earlier, but if it didn't make sense or you have any questions, just ask. And then going back to Isalla's like question about a dress design or like a one-off design, these cannot be protected because clothing as a whole is seen as functional. Competition in a free market is encouraged. We want people to be able to buy the design they want at a different price point or buy into the trend they want at whatever price point. And we see this. I used the dress of a designer called Mirror Palais. He gets ripped off quite often. He made a video about it, I think like last summer or something. And there's really no recourse for him, unfortunately, because he makes, you know, he makes designs that a lot of people love and a lot of people love to copy. And that's just how it goes in a free market. If your design is truly, truly novel and you think you have a case for it, design patent is an option, but it's still quite difficult when it comes to clothing to protect that.
Yeah, I always tell people, just be the Kleenex of tissues. Be the first one and let everybody know that you're the one and you're the best one, and let people associate you with that thing. And yes, if people are going to copy it, it's like the flattering part of it. But if everybody's buying from you because you're the original, then there you go.
And how do you do that? Through marketing.
Right.
Branding.
There is a question.
Oh, sorry. We're going to talk about that on a future slide, but what was the question?
There is still a question in the comments that I didn't get to. It's why are there so many seemingly similar yet separate TM classes? For example, women's handbags and handbags for women.
So those aren't in different classes. Those are both class 18, and it's just different language. And you could like either one. If you're, you know, filing for handbags, you can put either one of those, or you could put both, and it's going to amount to the same thing. Up until last January 2025, you could actually type in a box like what you wanted to put, and now we are limited to what has already been like predetermined. I don't know how they decided like what made the cut, but there's a lot of like kind of repeats like that, and it's all going to be in the same class if it's like truly the same item. So yeah, I mean, look at the class number. Those should both be class 18, and that's what's going to matter more.
What if you don't fit into one of the pre-existing classes?
Then you have to type the freeform box, and there's an extra fee of $200 per class.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I always try to get people like in the one, unless they have something like truly unheard of. So yeah, I like to think of trademarks as kind of like building blocks. It's not a one and done. It's not just the brand name or brand name and logo. Like your IP or your trademark portfolio is meant to grow and evolve with the brand as you focus on new elements, as you launch new products, as you prune different things that you don't use as much anymore. But the foundation blocks, so look at this fortress. The blocks holding everything together are the ones at the bottom. They lay the foundation. That is always going to be your brand name and your logo. And if you think of like the lifespan of a brand, those are also the least likely to change. So think of Nike. They have hundreds upon hundreds of trademarks when they have a new product and they have a new collection, whatever. But it's always Nike and it's always the swoosh. And those are the foundational building blocks. Everything else can come and go, but not those. So these are the core of your branding. And when anybody anywhere in the country sees those things, you want them to think of your brand. And that's going to be the most important things to protect first. As you get bigger, as you grow taller, as your marketing expands, as more people have a chance to interact with your brand and respond to it, and you see what people respond to and you see what works and what doesn't, then you add different things. Like you might want to protect a trade or a tagline. So like Just Do It in the case of Nike, a sub brand. Not thinking of Nike, or what are Nike sub brands? I don't know. I don't do sports, but like a brand that goes under the brand that's like a certain collection or a product line, or like a hero product like Air Jordan, that is definitely trademarked. Or like, yeah, the different like specific products that they have. And then as you get even more established, as time goes by, as you hit that 5-mark threshold, you can now look into trade dress, and that includes your packaging, the color schemes you use, the design elements that are specific to your brand. So it's like an ongoing thing that is always helpful to kind of check in every couple of years and see, has anything fallen to the wayside that we can let go of? Has anything emerged that is, a big brand identifier that people might want to copy, or that people recognize our brand when they see it? That's very valuable IP. Think strategically, consistent branding across touch points. And by touch points, I mean like on your social media, in the mall, in a random like third-party retailer that people might see. But just having like every time someone sees your brand to be hit with that same image is very, very valuable, because people buy from what they see repeatedly. It builds trust on like a subconscious level, and it makes people more comfortable giving you their money. Not to sound like malicious, or I don't know, not to sound like what's the word, manipulative, but it's really not. It's just like sales psychology. And if you have a good product, you should want people to know about it and to trust it and to buy it. And yeah, this is how you like turn your brand into an asset. Oh yeah.
Wait a minute, did we just give another person?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe it was time thing. Okay, let me go on to your next slide. There we go.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite slides. I think it's like, I don't know, it was like such a light bulb moment. So I grew up in the early 2000s, and all I wanted in middle school was to wear name brand Uggs and a name brand Juicy Couture tracksuit with the J zipper. I was so offended one time because my mom tried to buy me one that had just like a normal zipper, and I was like, I can't wear this, like you don't get it. And I think that's such a good example of how Juicy Couture did like kind of turned their branding in, or turned their trademark, or used their branding as a trademark that like really grew the value of their brand so exponentially. So it's not that a J-shaped zipper is inherently cool on its own. If you were to just see that with no cultural context of what that means, without seeing it on a bunch of celebrities, without having this preconceived notion of what that is, it wouldn't mean anything. But it's actually, in the way that they did it, in the way of it being like a brand, is packed with so much symbolism and so much meaning and lore, and it just conveys an entire vibe, and that is so valuable to consumers. People like to spend more money to have a brand name, and that's something that you can tap into. Like Angela said, like people can copy you, but everyone wants the original. Like me in middle school, like that was all I wanted. Because if every other brand were able to do it, if every other brand could have a J zipper, it wouldn't mean anything. It would just dilute the meaning completely, and you wouldn't know whose tracksuit is Juicy versus whose is just some random brand. By having the exclusive right to use their branding element, that J zipper, Juicy was easily able to charge 3 times more for the same exact product as all of these other brands. And that's an example of them building up the meaning of their branding, building up the value of their branding, and then making it exclusive to them with a trademark. So marketing tells this, or branding is your identity. Marketing tells the story of the identity. It gives it the hype, and trademarks protect that so that only you are able to use it and no one else can piggyback off of like what you're building or your vibe. Does that make sense?
Yes. You know, what's so funny? I'm going to date myself here, but I had the same experience in high school with Guess jeans. the upside down triangle, you wanted that on your butt, and there's nothing special about this
Exactly.
butt, but if you didn't have that, then you were not cool. But that leads me to a question. There was another denim brand called Palmetto back then that used an upside down triangle label on the butt of your jeans. And I'm thinking, like, how did they get away with that? Like, did Guess not protect themselves?
Let me see. I'm looking up Palmetto right now. Somebody asked me something similar because Prada also does an upside down. Oh yeah, they do. Huh, that's interesting.
It was like the same era and everything. So
Yeah.
crazy.
Maybe they're owned by the same parent company.
Oh, maybe.
But yeah, that is strange.
Yeah. I just remember being like, oh, is this like, you'd see it and you'd be like, are those Guess? Oh no, those are Palmettos.
I looked it up. It said that Palmetto was a dupe. So I don't know if like maybe they were operating without, maybe they were like operating illegally, or not illegally, but infringing knowingly, and Guess just didn't do anything. Someone asked me something about like Guess and Prada, because Prada also uses an upside down triangle. And yeah, I decided, I think because an upside down triangle isn't like that distinctive in and of itself, it's like a very generic shape. So right off the bat, the protection for it is going to be more narrow. But the fact that it was two denim companies is pretty wild.
And it was such an identifier of Guess. Like, that's the thing. It was like the red shoes, you're like, that's Guess jeans because of that. You'd think you could own that. Just like the label, the Levi's tag, I mean, it's like, so it's a little red tag, it's crazy. That's
I think some brands are definitely more aggressive. Like you said with Levi's, like they reached out and said something. I think maybe Guess just isn't one of those, but, or maybe like, I mean, Palmetto's not around. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, maybe they eventually did. It just took years. That's interesting.
So did Juicy have to wait 5 years to trademark the J charm?
They probably did because it's trade dress, but I also, yeah, they must have because it's trade dress.
That's crazy. I'm surprised they didn't have more like copycats like earlier on, but maybe they weren't that popular. Maybe it took them 5 years to gain that much like credibility.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so question I have, or actually, wait, sorry. Also, because the J was like a logo before, so they could protect it as a logo, and then that gave them like some standing if someone was to use it in that way, that they're like infringing on the logo itself in the form of a zipper. So maybe that's what they did, but anyway. Okay. So a question I get often is, do I still need a trademark if I have the LLC, the DBA, I didn't include this, but the domain name or a corporation under my brand name? The answer is yes. Oh wait, domain is under, okay. Answer is yes. These are all corporate identities. They apply to tax status and separating yourself from the business in terms of liability. They don't grant you any rights over the name or give you legal ownership of the brand name or branding elements. So these are all very separate, and having an LLC, DBA, or corporation is not going to protect you when it comes to the brand name. If I have the domain name or the social media handle, yes. You always want the domain name and the social media handle for like consistency across branding, but these also don't give you any legal rights. And there's a really easy loophole if you can't get the social media handle or domain, which is just making it a tagline. Like before Tesla got the website tesla.com, it was like Drive Tesla for a really long time. And that is really cool because it kind of like ingrains in people's minds like what you do, like what kind of company it is. So a lot of brands do that, and it's really clever. And yeah. But I would say don't purchase a domain name before checking the name's trademark availability, like me with the name I originally wanted to use. And after you do have a pending application, it's wise to buy the domain shortly after, because you don't want like a domain squatter to get it first if they see that there's a pending application with no domain purchased.
You know how sometimes people say, well, send yourself a certified mail thing with it and never open it up, and then you can prove that you're the first one to use something. What do you think about that?
That's for copyright that they do that. Yeah, it's not foolproof, but people do it. I mean, I don't know. I've not like gotten into any, I've not like read any cases where that was like the issue that it hinged on. So I can't say. Someone said poor man's patent. It's not a patent. I should have done a slide on the difference between all of those, but patents are like for inventions and they're very, very serious. You can't poor man your way into a patent. Copyright. And I think it probably is semi-functional, but I don't know. I don't want to give anyone advice on that because I don't know.
Malaysia, do you want to say something?
Yeah, Angela, were you talking about the poor man's patent?
Yeah, we were just saying that. Yeah, just basically just protecting anything. You know, I've always been told that you can try that, but
I was told it was like, I was told it holds up in court, but it depends, right?
But she's saying
I was thinking about
for
doing that.
not for a patent, but for
Not
copyright.
Oh,
because you need like patent attorneys are engineers as well. So the process of getting one is like very intensive. But I think people do that when it comes to copyright a lot, which is like serious.
Cool. All right. And next.
Okay, this is my last slide. And it's just like on how to work with me, like different things I offer. So brand name audits, this is really important if you have a name in mind that you want to use before you want to file an application, or even if you want to file the application on your own and just want to know like what you're getting yourself into so the name isn't taken. This is a really good step to take, even if it's the only one that you do with an attorney. In my opinion, it's the single best move to avoid having to rebrand if you file your own application. I basically do a sweep of the USPTO website, and I also cross-reference with an AI tool to show you everything that is potentially infringing, and then I'll write you a letter showing everything that I saw and giving like my diagnosis of how serious I think it is. I also do trademark filings and office action support. And then if you have a trademark and you want to respond to a cease and desist or send one or negotiate like a coexistence agreement, I can help you with that. And you can also schedule a strategy session or a consultation at my website, which is on the bottom, Citrine TMS. And yeah, if you want to follow my socials, that's all there too.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to open us up to questions, but everybody was asking them throughout the presentation, so I don't know if we're going to have very many. But remind me, did we work out an agreement for something for like a benefit or something for fabric people? I can't even remember.
So we did talk about that. We can talk about it more, but basically like due to the ethical constraints of like being a lawyer, there's a lot of limitations on like what I can and can't do. So we can definitely talk about something and see. Yeah.
I thought we had talked about it, but I didn't know if we had decided to do something. So I want to make sure everybody knew if there was something that we were doing.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like a formalized agreement, I think we did. And then I came back and said that I can't do it because of the ethics.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions that you didn't get to ask throughout the whole presentation? Is there anything lingering?
I have a question. Can you like trademark a phrase? Like I was thinking about putting a specific phrase like inside my packaging. Is that something that would be wise to do? I don't even know if people do that, but
yeah, that's a tagline. So you can totally trademark that. Like I was thinking for you, like let's have a sleepover or something could be a tagline, or like, yeah, welcome to my sleepover. I don't know. But I feel like there's a lot for your brand that you could do that could work really well. And those could definitely be trademarked.
do you recommend trademarking them like as early as I am in the process?
If you plan to like use it consistently and like really use it and put it across your branding and in your packaging and stuff, yeah, I don't see why not. I would say for you, I mean, your main concern is obviously like the name.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you have a tagline that you really love and you want to protect it, then I don't see why not. But just make sure that like it falls in line with the name that you're able to use.
Okay. And then the name can be like kind of longer, you were saying, like that's fine. Like if the name was like want to have a sleepover.
Yeah.
That could be the name.
Fine too.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. But of course, like any name that you choose, do a search or have me do a search. But yeah, don't like go into it blind.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Are there other questions? Anybody else?
Yes, I have a question.
Mhm.
Okay, so as a designer, I like wearing vests, right? So I know you were saying earlier that you can't trademark like a mini skirt because anybody can make them or whatever. But I made a vest with a certain print. Would I be able to trademark that certain vest with a certain print or no?
Depends on the print, but you could potentially copyright the print.
Okay.
But the way to trademark it, I mean, you could also possibly trademark it as like trade dress if you've been using it consistently. So I would have to know like the specifics.
Okay. Specifics as far as.
I would have to see it.
Okay, yeah, I figured. Okay, let me show it to you real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, can we even see these?
So look, check it out. So I have this. I made this one was my first one that I made. This one right here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got the paisley print. They're literally made. The front panels are made out of bandanas, you know, and the back of it is all silk. You know, so and I have a bunch of them. I just wanted to see if I can trademark these or where do you use not trademark but
Copyright.
copyright. Yes, ma'am. Yes, that. So I have these right here. I mean, because
Okay.
I haven't seen anything like it, and I mean it'd be nice to, you know, like some type of signature or something, you know.
So, okay, first of all, those are really cool. It's
Thank you.
definitely like novel, but the thing is that no one owns that bandana print. It's so widely reproduced that
Yeah.
you can't write or trademark it because it literally belongs to anyone and everyone who wants to use it.
I figured.
And what you did was like put it on a vest, which is original, but the print itself can't be owned by anyone, and neither can the shape of a vest. So you are kind of combining two like public, like two things that can't be protected. And so ultimately it can't, unfortunately.
Shit, whatever.
Bummer. You're still there.
Yeah, I'm still here. Okay. No worries. I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah. But this is where, you know, like you have to establish yourself through marketing and make that work for you in terms of like being the original person who did this. And people always want the original as opposed to the remake. So yeah, you're gonna have to rely on like the marketing aspect
Okay.
rather than the legal aspect.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, makes sense. I figured it'd be a challenge, but I just thought I'd ask.
There's another question. Anna.
Oh, I wanted to ask if you heard about the Pop Flex, the Pop Flex case. It just happened recently.
Tell me about it.
So the designer owns a patent to this skirt. It's it has a lot of different engineering. And she has been fighting has been fighting companies to get them to stop making dupes of her product because she does have that patent.
Mm-hmm.
And she I don't know if she's gotten a ruling on any of those yet, but she finally got I don't remember which company it was. I think it was Nordstrom. Got somebody to someone finally agreed to stop making those products.
Are you talking about this pirouette skirt?
Yes,
Yeah,
the pirouette skirt. Yes.
I didn't know about the case, but like a year or so ago, I saw the designer talk about it on TikTok. So I actually was aware of that. Yeah, it looks like she had a design patent and she is carried in Nordstrom. I don't know. Was she able to stop them? I guess I'll have to read up on the case.
I can't believe she was able to own this. This is a tutu with shorts under it. Like, how are you able to own that?
It must have something to do with like, yeah. I don't know. I don't know about design patents. Like it's always And I don't know if she's able to stop Shein based on like whatever technicality she got the patent. I should read up on this.
It's interesting.
It was my understanding that she had the product had a lot of design engineering. It wasn't so much the outer part of the garment, the inner parts of the garment.
Okay. Yeah, so based off of that, like it would be interesting to know if she could stop Shein if they didn't copy like what specifically is protected, but don't know too much on that. I will soon though.
Interesting. All right. Are there any other questions? Last call. All right. So I want to thank you so much, Nadine. This was so informative and really generous of your time. We really appreciate you sharing all that information with us. And now everybody knows how to reach you. But if you need an introduction over email or something like that, just reach out to me and I will connect you guys as well. And you know, whenever you're in Arizona, please come. We do these. I know you said you come here sometimes. So come to Behind the Seams. We do them the last Thursday of every month. Thank you again so much for doing this.
I put my email in the chat. I realize it's not on the slide, but if you reach out to Angela, she can also connect us. But yeah, of course, I always have fun doing these and I would love to do it again, maybe in person next time. But yeah, thank you so much for having me and thank you everyone for showing up and asking questions.
Maybe we can figure out something so that we could offer like some sort of class or something so that you can come out here and we can do it in person, something that's even in more depth or anything like that. So stay tuned, you guys, because if we figure something out, I will let you know. Make sure you're getting that newsletter.
Yeah. Okay. And then or you can reach out to me or we'll talk about something like for us that we can work out.
Perfect. Awesome. All right, you guys, you're going to get the rest of your evening back. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you thought that was educational and helpful. And Nadine, once more, thank you. I'm going to give you applause. Thank you. Thank you. That was amazing. You're incredible. We really appreciate you.
Stop it. Okay. Bye, guys. Good night.
Thank you. That was great. Have a good night.
Bye.